Good morning, it's Miss Gainey. Thank you for joining me for the last and final part of TheVeldt. So this is going to be part 5. The last thing we heard in part 4 was, so George, the dad, he's kind of questioning the kids, and he's like, listen, if you guys don't get it together, I'm gonna have to start taking away their nursery and you're not gonna be able to play in it anymore. And imagine all these fun imaginary rooms like the African Veldt. And Peter, the son, is like, you better not do that, Dad. And George said, no way, I'm not gonna be threatened by my own son, absolutely not. And so he calls in a psychologist to, examine the room, so the room remains the same as what the kids had imagined, which is this African Veldt with these lions eating something bloody in the distance. And the psychologist is like, yep, I knew it. Your kids are spoiled. They are addicted to this technology of the home. And when you told them they couldn't take the rocket to New York, now they're starting to have these negative thoughts. So you need to stop that right now, because they care more about technology than they care about you and your wife, than they care about their own mom and dad. So we need to stop this right now. And they're staring at the walls, and the psychologist says, I don't want them going any deeper into this, that's all. The lions were finished with their red feast. The lions were standing on the edge of the clearing, watching the two men. Now I'm feeling persecuted, said the psychologist. Let's get out of here. I never cared for these dang rooms. It makes me nervous. The lions look real, don't they? Said George Hadley. I don't suppose there's any way, what, that they could become real? Not that I know of. Some flaw in the machinery, a tampering or something? No. They went to the door. I don't imagine the room would like being turned off, said the father. Nothing ever likes to die, not even a room. I wonder if it hates me for wanting to switch it off. Paranoia is thick around here today, said David McLean. You can follow it like a spore. Hello. He bent and picked up a bloody scarf. Is this yours? No. George Hadley's face was rigid. It belongs to Lydia. They went to the fuse box together and threw the switch that killed the nursery. Ugh, the two children were in hysterics. They screamed and pranced and threw things. They yelled and sobbed and swore and jumped at the furniture. You can't do that to the nursery. You can't. Now, children. The children flung themselves onto a couch weeping. George, said Lydia Hadley, turn on the nursery just for a few moments. You can't be so abrupt. No. You can't be so cruel. Lydia, it's off and it stays off. And the whole dang house dies as of here and now. The more I see of the mess we've put ourselves in, the more it sickens me. We've been contemplating our mechanical electronic navels for too long. My God, how we need a breath of honest air. And he marched about the house, turning off the voice clocks, the stoves, the heaters, the shoe shiners, the shoelacers, the body scrubbers, the swabbers, the massagers, and every other machine he could put his hand to. The house was full of dead bodies, it seemed. It felt like a mechanical cemetery. So silent. None of the humming, hidden energy of the machines waiting to function at the tap of a button. Don't let them do it, wailed Peter at the ceiling, as if he was talking to the house, the nursery. Don't let Father kill everything. He turned to his father. I hate you. Insults won't get you anywhere. I wish you were dead. We were for a long while. Now we're going to really start living. Instead of being handled and massaged, we're going to live. Wendy was still crying and Peter joined her again. Just a moment, just one more moment, just another moment of the nursery, they wailed. Oh, George, said the wife, it can't hurt. All right, if they'll only just shut up. 1 minute, mind you, and then off forever. Daddy, 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 sang the children, smiling with their tear-wet faces. And then we're going on a vacation. David McLean is coming back in half an hour to help us move out and get to the airport. I'm going to dress. You turn the nursery on for a minute, Lydia, just a minute, mind you. And the three of them went babbling off for a while. He let himself be vacuumed upstairs through the air flue and set about dressing himself. A minute later, Lydia appeared. I'll be glad when we get away, she sighed. Did you leave them in the nursery? I wanted to dress too. Oh, that horrid Africa. What can they see in it? Well, in 5 minutes, we'll be on our way to Iowa. Lord, how did we ever get in this house? What prompted us to buy a nightmare? Pride, money, foolishness. I think we'd better get downstairs before those kids get engrossed with those dang beasts again. Just then, they heard the children calling, Daddy, Mommy, come quick, quick. They went downstairs in the air flue and ran down the hall. The children were nowhere in sight. Wendy, Peter, they ran into the nursery. The Veltland was empty, except for the lions waiting, looking at them. Peter, Wendy, the door slammed. Wendy, Peter! George Hadley and his wife whirled and ran back to the door. Open the door, cried George Hadley, trying the knob. Why, they've locked it from the outside. Peter! He beat at the door. Open up! He heard Peter's voice outside against the door. Don't let them switch off the nursery and the house, he was saying. Mr. and Mrs. George Hadley beat at the door. Now, don't be ridiculous, children. It's time to go. Mr. McLean will be here in a minute, and... Then they heard the sounds. The lions on all three sides of them in the yellow veldt grass, padding through the dry straw, rumbling and roaring in their throats. The lions. Mr. Hadley looked at his wife, and they turned and looked back at the beasts edging slowly forward, crouching, tails stiff. Mr. and Mrs. Hadley screamed, and suddenly they realized why all those other screams had sounded familiar. Well, here I am, said David McLean in the nursery doorway. Oh, hello, he stared at the two children seated in the center of the open glade, eating a little picnic lunch. Beyond them was the water hole in the yellow veltland. Above was the hot sun. He began to perspire. Where are your father and mother? The children looked up and smiled. Oh, they'll be here directly. Good, we must get going. At a distance, Mr. McLean saw the lions fighting and clawing and then quieting down to feed in silence under the shady trees. He squinted at the lions with his hand up to his eyes. Now the lions were done feeding. They moved towards the water hole to drink. A shadow flickered over Mr. McLean's hot face. Many shadows flickered. The vultures were dropping down the blazing sky. A cup of tea? Asked Wendy in the silence. The illustrated man shifted in his sleep. He turned, and each time he turned, another picture came to view, coloring his back, his arm, his wrists. He flung a hand over the dry night grass. The fingers uncurled, and there upon his palm, another illustration stirred to life. He twisted, and on his chest was an empty space of stars and blackness, deep, deep, and something moving among those stars, something falling in the blackness, falling as I watched. So that was TheVeldt by Ray Bradbury and the Illustrated Man. The first tattoo or first illustration to come to life. I'm really interested to hear your guys' thoughts on it. So let me know in the comments, or hopefully I'll talk to you guys soon. Thank you for joining me for this book.